Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome. And we're going to start. And it's 3 o'clock on the hour. And I'm going to hit record. So excellent. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our As the Expert. And today I am super excited to have she's no longer a guest. She's like one of the team members' primary go-to. Just as disclaimer out there, she was a personal behaviorist for my son for years. And so that tells you that I have complete, absolutely trust in what she would share because it's personal and she was able to do that. But not more than that, she was also she's also rather a team member for the Haven International Program. And so as part of our Autism Acceptance Month series and as part of our New to Autism Diagnosis series, Rebecca is in the cross component of both, which is really, really exciting. So this is a cross process of bringing two of our big organizations within the organization together. And Haven International is growing leaps and bounds. It's 10 years old. If you want to check us out at havenint.org. havenint.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. A lot of things are happening. I mean, I am like super jealous because I'm here and you're talking about retreats and you're talking about all kind of stuff. And I'm like, Jennifer, if you want to show your face for a minute, because for the folks who are not familiar with you, Jennifer is our director at Haven International. So I'm just showing her face now. So Jennifer is also part of the work that's being done. So Jen, if you want to say hi to the team watching from here in the US, in Ghana, in Gambia, for where our teams have joined us as well too.
Hello, everybody. Greetings from Haven. We're super excited that you've joined us today. I'm sure you'll have a good one because there's lots Rebecca will share with us today. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Awesome. So like Jennifer said, we're like Jen and Jen. That's how people know us. If you think I'm a force to be reckoned with, I think she's a double force to be reckoned with. So Rebecca could agree to that, right? we just know that when the two of us come together on a serious note, we just want to do the right thing at the right time all the time. And we just don't want people to obstruct what we need to do. But on a more serious note, we are so grateful to have the team from Haven join us and as we do the program today. And you're going to start to see more of that programming that's going to cross because the world has become very small. And the issues that we all face as parents, as professionals are all the same regardless what part of the country, what part of the world you're in. Obviously, there's certain things that are peculiar to the area, but ultimately it's always about just making sure that the best information out there is provided for. So we're going to be talking today, and I'm going to introduce Rebecca Zegas. She's the CEO and executive director for Limitless Behavior Consultants. They're here in New Jersey, but she has done a lot of work now, even overseas. She traveled to Ghana, Liberia, and I'm sure when we start to pack bags to go to Gambia, you're coming right along with us, just to be able to share her wealth of knowledge. And she's been on this platform a couple of times. And this is not her first time joining on this platform. So I want to just really recognize, Rebecca, thank you for who you are. Thank you for your passion for individuals on the autism spectrum and more. You display patience and kindness on so many levels. If I'm making you blush, it's intentional. I do that well. But no, on a serious note, I really appreciate you making time. And anytime I reach out and say, hey, we're doing a program, you find a way to make it happen. And truly, my goal is appreciative, and Haven is appreciative of all the effort and the things you do. So she's going to introduce her practice, and you have questions, and you have people who want to access her resources. please do fully endorse, only because I told you I personally have been a beneficiary of that, or Nicholas has been. So on that note, we're going to do our empowerment, our Ask the Expert new to the autism series. And regardless if you're new or not, the reality is that behavioral management is some key that all of us need. We all need applied behavior analysis. I tell myself the things that I know I need to do right, and somebody needs to repeat it a couple of times and show me the ways to do it. So on that note, I invite Rebecca to take the steering wheel.
Hi, Jen. Thank you so much for such a kind introduction. I love every second of everything I do with my goal and Haven. It's been such an amazing journey over the past several years to be involved and to watch the Haven team really grow and embrace the ABA. It's been probably one of the most rewarding things that I do in my career, and I do love it. As Jen was saying, I own Limitless Behavioral Services. We are located in Mercer County, New Jersey, and we provide center-based ABA services for children with autism and other developmental disabilities. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You would think that this would be so much smoother already. One sec. Okay. Here we go. Okay, so as Genevieve said, I kind of combine the two topics today. So at the beginning, we're going to talk a little bit about autism, the diagnosis, resources for parents if your child was newly diagnosed. And then we're going to go in and learn a little bit about ABA, how ABA can really help most, if not all, children with autism. And then we'll have some time for questions and answers at the end. Okay, so autism, what you need to know. There's some really interesting statistics that are out that get updated every few years. And one of them I think that's super important to share is just the current prevalence of autism spectrum disorder. And the data that I have and I've taken from the CDC is specifically for the United States and New Jersey. So in the United States, the prevalence of children diagnosed with autism and the data they collected were based on 8-year-olds who were diagnosed with autism in 2018. That was the population they chose because by then, most people who will be diagnosed with autism have already been diagnosed with autism. And 2018 is our most recent data. So I would take it with a grain of salt because I'm assuming that these numbers are probably a little different if we were to look now in 2021, 22. In New Jersey, the prevalence of autism is 1 in every 35 children. So New Jersey does have a larger prevalence of autism than the national average. And in some other states, I think there's 2 or 3 states that might have a higher prevalence. Some other data, children who were born in 2014 are 1.2 times as likely to receive an autism diagnosis compared to children who were born in 2010. In New Jersey, 2% of 4-year-olds are identified as being diagnosed with autism. And you can see here, there's 3 states that rank higher, having more diagnoses, but the national average is 1.7%. This growth in diagnoses since 2010 can be attributed to lots of different things, but I do think that a big part of it is more accurate diagnoses. The DSM changed their diagnosis criteria, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And Asperger's syndrome, which used to be a separate diagnosis, now falls under the autism spectrum. So any child who would have been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome before the change in the DSM Now they would just be diagnosed as under the autism spectrum. So those could be some of the reasons that we're seeing a little bit of an increased number. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this. There's lots of questions about what qualifies a child for autism? What are the things that we look for? So this is directly from the DSM criteria, which is the manual that health professionals use to diagnose autism. So you can see there's 5 different sections. There needs to be deficits in social communication and social interactions. And these are the examples of the different deficits that there might be. There must be restrictive, repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities, and at least 2 of these must be present or in the child's history if the child is going for a diagnosis at a later age. These symptoms must be present in the early stages of development. So most of these things will be noticeable by 18 to 36, 48 months. There is a group of children, some children that appear to develop typically until about 18 months, and then you'll see a regression in skills. These regressions and these symptoms must occur in that 18 to 48 month time frame. The symptoms must cause clinical impairment to social, occupational, and other important areas of functioning. And these disturbances or these symptoms are not better explained by some other different intellectual disability. They've now also included different levels of severity when looking at the autism diagnosis. So level 3 being requiring the most support, to level 1 requiring support, but the least amount of support. Doctors are often including these levels in their diagnoses to help guide services and help guide the parents to know what they need to go ahead and look for. So with this newly diagnosed child with autism, you go to all of these doctor's appointments, they do all of these assessments, you fill out all of these questionnaires, and then after many appointments, after a long meeting with the doctor, you're handed a 30-page document that describes the diagnosis, and at the end has 2 to 3 pages of recommendations. So it can be very, very stressful to navigate and to know what you should do next and what you should prioritize. So I'm hoping to help make that a little more streamlined and a little clearer for newly diagnosed children. So I think the first thing that parents of newly diagnosed children need to contact is supports. This is going to be a journey. If your child is diagnosed with autism, it's likely going to be something that they will be identifying in themselves for probably most of their life. There are definitely plenty of children who might lose the autism diagnosis, no longer qualify after years of service and after some learning and growth. But I would say the majority of people with autism experience the need for supports throughout their life. So I wanted to share some of the supports that are available. And this was right on the CDC's website for New Jersey supports and New Jersey information. So there are supports for parents to talk to other parents, early intervention. I know that I think it was last week or the week before, My Goal did a presentation on early intervention. That would be one of your first stops if your child is diagnosed, and different departments and organizations that can help. So I really keep these resources and look through and see what would be able to benefit you and your family. You have those resources, but it's also very important for parents to create a support system. Having a child with autism, just like having a typical child, is not an easy job. And parents who have typical children join different parent groups, do different activities. And I really stress how important it is for parents of children with autism to do that as well, and to create those support systems for themselves. And And that can be anything from family and close friends, reaching out and finding other parents of children with autism. There's a ton of Facebook groups, good, bad, or indifferent, what information they share, but at the very least, it's a connection to other families who might be dealing with the same things that you are. Religious groups, if you're already involved in religious groups, stay involved. You'll be so surprised when you start to go through your autism journey and realize how many other people are on the same journey that you might not have realized. Looking out for parent support groups, sibling support groups. And I really think that it's important for parents and siblings to also get individual therapy. This is something that's going to change lives, sometimes in really great ways, and sometimes in some difficult ways. So to make sure that parents are looking out for themselves, supporting themselves, I always say to the parents of the children at my center that however much you want to do for your child, you can't if you haven't done for yourself. You can't run on empty. You can't provide them the world if you're not providing yourself the things that you need as well. So to really, really create those support systems from the beginning, so you have support as you go through the journey. One of the main things, obviously, I think that you should do if your child is diagnosed with autism is to immediately locate ABA therapy in your area. This can be a variety of different formats. ABA therapy can be in-home services where the therapists would come out to your house, the BCBA would come out and work in the home. This could be center-based services where you drop your child off, they work on skills there, and then help you generalize those skills to home through parent training and some home sessions. It can be in a school environment. So there's lots of different ways. The easiest ways to find ABA in your area is Google. Autism New Jersey has a link to navigating resources in your area, as does Autism Speaks. And another way that you could do this is calling your insurance company and asking for referrals. As an insurance-based company, I get calls all the time from insurance companies telling me that they have a child in this area looking for services. So your insurance company will also help you get in contact with ABA providers if you're not having success. Once you do contact an ABA provider and they are able to start the enrollment process, I will preface this with many ABA agencies, including my own, start with wait lists. There are just not enough trained professionals to work with all of the students in New Jersey that need services. So put yourself on as many wait lists as possible. If someone calls me, I will also refer out to other local agencies to get on wait lists. And basically the sooner they can get in, the better. So by putting yourself on multiple wait lists, you'll be able to access services sooner. Sometimes when parents come to us, they're very overwhelmed by this long process once the enrollment starts and by all of the things that we need from the family. So I thought it would be helpful to kind of share what an ABA agency will need and what that enrollment process will look like, because it could take several weeks from saying they have availability to actually starting services, but this is why. The first thing that ABA agency is going to need from you is the full diagnostic report. So the whole report that explains what assessments the doctor did to determine the diagnosis of autism. Insurance companies accept diagnoses that are written by developmental pediatricians, neurologists, psychologists. It needs to fall under those, they need to have that title to be able to diagnose and be accepted by insurance. You will also need a prescription for ABA. This actually can also be written by that person who diagnosed, but you can also call your pediatrician and just have them write a prescription. A copy of the insurance card, obviously, and then any other intake paperwork that the agency requires. My agency requires an intake packet and a parent contract just to make sure parents understand everything that they will be doing, everything their child will be doing in ABA. The agency then contacts the insurance company to confirm if your insurance covers ABA services. And if it does, obtain the authorization for the first step, which would be the intake. In New Jersey, Medicaid just started to cover ABA, and ABA is covered by many, many private plans as well. When we submit for authorization, we have to submit to the insurance company all of the things that we've requested from you. And it sometimes takes them anywhere up to 2 weeks to get back to us with a ruling on whether or not they are going to give that authorization. Some insurance companies, it's just one phone call and we get authorization immediately over the phone. Other insurance companies require us to fax things and require a whole paper trail, and then it takes them a little bit longer to get back to us. Once the agency gets authorization for the intake, you will then have a board certified behavior analyst reach out to you to complete the initial intake assessment. So this is the person who will be supervising your child's services. They'll come out, they'll meet with you, interview the parent, do some assessments with the child so they can write an informed treatment plan to then submit to the insurance company for approval for ongoing services. This treatment plan will include measurable goals and objectives, similar to an IEP, if anyone is familiar with that, and the recommended dosage of services. So the dose of services, the number of hours a week of ABA, will vary from client to client, depending on the levels of severity that they were diagnosed with, the deficits and their strengths. If there's maladaptive behaviors, and we'll have to be spending time to reduce those behaviors, and the age of the client. The research shows that for early intervention, 30 hours a week provides the most positive outcomes for children that receive that level of service at a young age. It's not always feasible with people's schedules. Sometimes our little guys who are 2 can't have 30 hours of services a week. That's a lot of time. But we do our best, and all of the agencies do their best to provide the level of services that really will make a meaningful change. Once we submit that to the insurance company, they either approve or call for some clarification. Once we get that final authorization to get going, those authorizations are good for 6 months. So we would then assign a therapist and begin treatment. So when the therapist is with your child, they will be implementing the treatment plan that the BCBA wrote. The BCBA will then spend time supervising the therapist to ensure that the plans are being run as written, that any changes need to be made, that data collection is being done correctly. So it really should be a very supervised situation. And at the very end of my talk today, I'm going to show you a video that describes kind of the 30 things to look for in a good ABA program, how to know if your child is receiving a good program. And one of those things is absolutely the BCBA oversight in the therapist's implementing of the treatment plan. Okay, so I've told you all now that if your child is diagnosed with autism, in my opinion, the first thing you should do is find ABA. But what is ABA? So ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. Applied means that what we do is socially significant. We look at behaviors that are socially significant for that child and their family. Behavior, it means that what we're targeting and the things that we are trying to change are observable and measurable. You'll be able to see the change. And analysis, we analyze data to make decisions. A good ABA program has consistent data being collected on all of the behaviors we are trying to change, so we can make sure our interventions are working and make changes if not. Okay, so to dive a little bit deeper into those terms, For us, for behavior analysts to change a behavior, we must make sure that the behavior we are working on is functional and meaningful to the client, the family, and their community. So how do we know if something is functional or meaningful? Well, if your child cannot perform the task independently, will someone else have to do it for him or her forever? If your child can't cut their food, will someone have to do it for them if we don't teach them how? Is it a skill that is frequently needed? I think a great example of this is wearing masks. At the very beginning of the pandemic, most of us had this attitude, this won't be forever. We don't need to worry about teaching our young clients who might have some sensory issues and difficulty with masks. It's probably not going to be a long-term thing. We don't need to work on teaching it. Well, we're now kicking ourselves and working with a lot of our students now and over the past 6 to 9 months, because it does seem that masks are going to be around for a while. So working on things that are frequent and current. We target skills that are needed across a variety of settings and situations. Social interactions that you might need at home, at school, at church, at a neighborhood event. We work on skills that are age appropriate. What you'll get to know a little bit about some students with autism is some, not all, but some students have what we call splinter skills. Skills that don't seem to fall in line with the rest of their development or the rest of their skills. So perhaps a student is not able to engage in age-appropriate play, but they can do any multiplication problem you give them. So as therapists, what we're going to work on is the skills that they need that are age-appropriate. So even though multiplication might be a strength that a 4-year-old has, we're not going to work to strengthen that even more because at the time it's not an age-appropriate skill for them. And will the skill that we're trying to teach enhance your child's quality of life? If reducing behaviors and increasing more functional skills will allow your child to access their environment more, be able to participate more in family and community events, hopefully help them get a job and live a more independent life. We work on things that are going to make your child's quality of life and your quality of life as parents improve. So many of the functional skills that we teach are communication-based. One of the biggest deficits of children with autism is difficulties with expressive and receptive communication. Expressive communication is how your child uses his or her words. For some children, this could be pictures, it could be gestures, sign language, but how your child tells you something. And receptive communication is understanding what is being spoken to them. So can they understand what you're saying? Can they follow simple directions? These are some of the initial and most important functional skills that we work on with even our youngest children. And we have children that have started with us at 18 months and teaching them that they can communicate instead of cry, or how to communicate is one of the most important things that we do. And you'll see at the bottom of some of these slides, I have some quotes that I collected from parents of children receiving services through my agency about how some of these skills work. So this parent said that ABA is presently teaching our family how to communicate with an electronic device. They've taught us that our son is actually really quick at learning, as long as he's shown an example of what to do or corrected with hand over hand. They've taught us that he learns much like a typical child. He just needs instructions given in a different way. Imitation is one of the main ways that early learners learn how to learn and learn how to engage appropriately in their environment. Typically, developing children learn to imitate and start doing it naturally at about 8 months old. If a child who is later diagnosed with autism is not imitating, it's possible that they never began to around 8 months, or they did, but that was one of the skills that regressed and they were no longer able to imitate. Imitation is one of the most important skills, one of the most important things to be able to do to develop social language and play skills. Children play by watching other children play and mimicking what they're doing or following along. As an adult, if you enter a new social environment, you look around and see how the other people in the environment are acting, are talking, and we imitate what we're seeing in the environment so that we are acting in similar ways. Other functional skills that we can teach through ABA are self-care skills, dressing, bathing, toothbrushing, hand washing, using the toilet. That is a huge one. Toilet training is really big with most of our students. We can also teach home or domestic skills, cleaning up, doing chores, preparing simple foods, doing laundry, things that might take a little bit longer to teach some of our students, but that we can teach through breaking down the skills with ABA. So now we're going to look at the term behavior in the applied behavior analysis. Behavior. What do you mean when we say behavior? So in ABA, when we're talking about behavior, all we mean is the way one acts in response to their environment. It's anything that a person does that is observable. Most behaviors are purposeful and learned, and they serve some type of function for that person. Oftentimes, behavior is a form of communication. Behavior can be appropriate or inappropriate, but it's always adaptive. That means it always serves some type of purpose. So while it may be inappropriate for a child to scream and tantrum, if that's the only way that they know how to communicate that they're hungry, it's adaptive. It might be seen as inappropriate, but it's adaptive. When we're working in ABA, just like when you are working with any of your typical children or doing any teaching, some behaviors we want to increase and some behaviors we want to decrease. We want to increase adaptive behaviors, increase appropriate adaptive behaviors, and we want to decrease some of those inappropriate behaviors and replace them with more appropriate ones. And now finally, we'll get into the analysis part. So data. There is so much data collection in ABA therapy. We make decisions based on what the data are telling us. If the data are saying that the student is making progress with the plan we have in place, we continue. If the data show that the student is not making progress, then we have to make some changes to help make progress. And we love to share graphs with parents, data with parents, to really show it's a beautiful visual to be able to see just how successful their child is being with a particular skill. So here are some examples of how a visual depiction of data can really give us a lot of information. So this skill right here, we were teaching a child to collect the garbage. He's not a child, actually, he's a 21-year-old, so he's a little bit older. And you were able to see that it was a little bit unsteady here on the left side. And then as he continued to make some progress, he started to become much more independent. And what you see here is a line that describes what change I made to help make this more consistent and more successful. Here is a beautiful, in the top right corner, a beautiful graph showing a child's ability to independently complete an activity schedule. And that's a schedule where they work on their own through a variety of activities. So the one on the left and the one on the top right are behaviors that we wanted to increase. We wanted to see that behavior more consistently. And on the bottom right, this is about a student who was eloping, running away from the area. And as you can see, prior to implementing a treatment, this was happening quite frequently throughout the session. Once we introduced the treatment, it looks like March 18th of 2021, We then saw a beautiful decrease in the behavior and a maintenance of that decrease down to 0 for at least a full month when it got to 0. So this just shows how important it is to take that data and especially to graph it to see what changes are being made. So how does ABA work? I just showed you beautiful examples of ABA doing all of this great stuff, but how does that actually happen? So there's 2 main principles that change behavior: reinforcement and punishment. Reinforcement involves consequences that strengthen a behavior. Strengthening it means that we want to increase the likelihood that the behavior will occur again in the future. And this parent says, in the simplest terms, the child will choose to learn to get something that they might need or want. And we're not making children earn meals or water or having their basic needs met. These are usually extras, fun things that the children like, maybe special snacks, special videos, things that we can add that the student appears to really enjoy, to show them that, great, you do what I ask, you get this thing that you really like. So hopefully in the future, you'll continue to engage in that behavior that we're trying to teach. On the other side, we have punishment. And I need to make it very clear that punishment in ABA terms is very, very, very different than punishment in regular day-to-day terms. Punishment is not punitive. It is not harmful. The whole purpose of punishment is to just decrease a behavior that we don't want to see anymore. So you're going to do something that's going to decrease the behavior. So the main difference is that reinforcement increases behavior and punishment decreases behavior. It's so important for ABA services for your child to be individualized. So this is where the treatment plan comes in, where we really need to get to know the child, get to know the parent, and what the parents' wants are, what their hopes and dreams are for their child, and how we can teach these skills in an individualized manner. So here are some examples of some individualized goals that some of my clients have. As looking at this, you will see that not all of these goals would be appropriate for every child. So one of them is given the opportunity to the person to communicate about various topics. The learner will ask follow-up questions. When motivated to gain access to an item, the learner will request it using a sentence. The learner will independently wave in response to a greeting. The learner will imitate actions, or the learner will follow a picture schedule. As you can see, in addition to them being individualized based to what that student needs, there's also very clear criteria for when we're going to consider that goal mastered, or we're going to say, yes, this is now a skill that we've taught and is in this child's repertoire. So it's not willy-nilly. It's not the child shows us one time that they can do it and we, wash our hands of it and say it's good. We want to make sure that these behaviors are maintaining. So you might see right here, 90% accuracy over 5 days. We want to make sure that those behaviors continue. One of the huge benefits of ABA is that we break down skills to help teach in a more effective way for our learners. We want to set our students up for success. So we break skills down so they're more manageable at the beginning, more doable for the student, and then work up towards teaching more difficult skills or putting all of those broken down pieces together into one larger skill. So for example, if we're going to teach a child to make their bed, we might first have the blankets pulled up for them and then just have them put the pillows on. Just starting with a simple task And then once they're proficient at that, kind of working backwards and adding more to that activity. Writing. We're not going to jump right in and teach the child to write their name. We're first going to work on teaching simple strokes, imitating handwriting, tracing, all of the other skills that would make actually writing your name much easier so the child can be much more successful. When a child learns how to speak or is starting to use expressive language, we'll first accept sounds that they make. Then approximations. Instead of bottle, maybe the child says baba. We'll accept that. And then as they start to make more progress and become more proficient with their language, then we up the ante, for lack of a better word, and start then teaching the more difficult sentences, teaching the more difficult words, requiring that a child uses a sentence instead of a word. And it really helps parents understand how they can break skills down, how they can break things down for their child to help make things more manageable for the children to do. The other main part of ABA, especially when we're looking at behaviors that we want to reduce, the first thing we need to do is determine what the function of that behavior is, the why. Why is a child engaging in this behavior? Because in order to teach a replacement that's more functional, we need to understand the why. So these are the 5 different functions of behavior, well, 4 plus the combined. So either you want to delay, stop, or get away from something. Think a child is sitting in a classroom and a teacher puts down a worksheet and the child immediately starts to scream and cry. So the teacher takes away the worksheet. Oh, buddy, don't worry, you don't have to do it. That's child showing us that he's crying because he does not want to stop. He does not want to do that work. And since he's crying, the teacher has taken away the paper. So that crying is going to keep working for that child until we teach him instead to say, this is hard, or can I have help? Or can I do it later? So the function was to stop the homework or get away from it. Instead of crying, we'll teach the student how to ask for that. Students might engage in behaviors to get something tangible. They might want a toy, they might want a snack. Think the child in the grocery store checkout line on the floor, kicking, screaming, crying, because they want that candy bar that mom said no to. So to make sure that we don't cause a scene in the grocery store, now we're going to go for that candy bar. They want something. Some of our students engage in behaviors because it just feels good on the inside. You'll often hear this referred to as stimming or engaging in stereotypic behavior. Some common examples are hand flapping, rocking, things like that, that don't really seem to serve any other purpose other than it feels good. And then students engage in behaviors because they want your attention, adults' attention, peers' attention. And I think the tricky part about this is some children don't care whether it's good attention or bad attention. They just want attention. So even if you're thinking, well, how could my child be wanting that? I'm yelling at them, but you still stopped what you were doing, went over to your child and gave them that attention, even though it might not be good attention. So those are the 4 main functions, but what research is showing us now, and is much more common, is that behaviors often are occurring because of some combination of those functions, some combination of those things. Maybe a child doesn't want to do work and wants to go outside and play on the playground. So there's a lot of different functions, and we're now seeing that a lot of these functions are combined, and it's not just one of them. But we need to keep these in mind when we're looking at behaviors to teach replacement or functional skills. And that's a huge part of ABA. I also added some quotes in here that came directly from our parents. When I just asked the question, what else do you want to tell me about ABA? What has your experience been? These responses were anonymous, so I don't know who said what. They were from a range of parents who had children ages 18 months up to 21. And I think, while these are all wonderful, my favorite one is the bottom one, that ABA gave hope when there was none. It's not perfect or stress-free, but it comes with a lot of possibilities. I've seen my child grow and do things that I couldn't imagine them doing when they first received their diagnosis. So I think that receiving that diagnosis can be upsetting and anxiety producing. But knowing that there are so many families in your shoes, so many families going through the same thing, and knowing that there is a research-based therapy that is able to make a significant difference in your child's life, hopefully that is a little bit of a comfort, knowing that once you can access these services, your children will be able to grow and learn. It's really confusing as a new parent to learn about ABA, to know how much your child should get, to know what's more important. Should I do ABA? Should I do speech? Should I do OT? There's so many things as a parent that you need to decide. I wanted to share this video with you. It's a couple of minutes long, and it shows the 30 quality indicators of an ABA program. I've unfortunately had many students that have come to us from other companies whose experience wasn't what I would hope that ABA would be. ABA needs to be intensive. ABA needs to be individualized, like we've talked about. The BCBA needs to supervise and oversee the programs. So I'm going to go ahead and play this little video for you. And if I will, I'm happily send out the slides to anyone that wants them. And the link is here for you to click on. But I'm going to show you this quick video. About the 30 quality indicators of ABA. So I hope that helped you get some information about what it looks like to have a good ABA program, all of the things that are included in an ABA program, so you can make informed decisions as a parent as to whether or not you think your child is receiving the ABA services they need. Just some final thoughts. Many skills can be taught without fancy materials or special degrees. As a BCBA, we work on helping support parents teach in natural environments, in their home environment, to be able to support their children. Skills are best taught in natural environments. So it's best to learn how to take a shower in your shower at home, how to cook a meal in the kitchen, daily routines, and provide repetitiveness that is often needed for children to learn. One of the main reasons that ABA is so effective is for the consistency, the intensity, and the repetitiveness, where we make sure that we continue to teach a skill until it is mastered and learned. And so much learning can happen while having fun. The last thing, the 30th point of that video, was that your child should love ABA. Most of our clients come running into the building. They want to see what is on their plate for that day. They want to see what activities they'll be doing. It's such a fun and enriching environment that many children don't know that they're learning. They're coming for fun and they are learning so much with it. And I think that has to be so important. ABA might be part of a child's life for a very long time, and we want to make sure that enough time is spent building relationships and having fun with the children and the therapists. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Rebecca. This is, as always, wonderful. I see some hand claps going on there. I have tons of questions, but just I choose my questions only from the standpoint that I want parents who may be shy, and I'm thinking of what it is, because as you started to talk, I thought back to when I started this job, I call it job of taking care of Nicholas, and here in ABA, and it's 18 years later, and I'm just finally beginning to understand it. I'm not trying to scare parents out there, but what you did was attempt to break down something that seems so mysterious, because the first thing you said is, the parent gets this diagnosis called autism. First of all, I was like, what the heck is that? It's, kind of confusing to begin with. And then you're telling me I need ABA, and it's like, okay, I'm glad that you broke it down. Okay, it sounds like, okay, I need some kind of food or medicine that I can take in, and it would cure my problem. And now we get into this place of how, the child is aged out of early intervention. Now they're in school. And so that's really where my question is going to go to, but I'm going to give opportunity for folks that have questions to ask. I see that Mylene had raised her hand. Go ahead, Mylene.
I don't know if I show my face. There you go.
Yeah.
Is that easier? So my question is, because you mentioned the BCBAs, right? That they're going to be supervising the care plans and how everything's going to be implemented. So question I've always had is, the people who actually implement it, like, what are their qualifications? What are their training? If they're doing discrete trials or any other modalities under ABA, how do they get that position,
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think it varies greatly from person to person, like from therapist to therapist. There is a relatively newer, I would say in the past 8 to 10 years, credential called RBT, which stands for Registered Behavior Technician. Okay. And that is a credential that is, I can put it into the chat if you want. So you don't have to write down. That is a credential that is through the same board as the BCBAs. And that requires 40 hours of coursework, online coursework, then an assessment with your supervising BCBA, and then you have to go take a test. However, to be able to do all of that, you need a high school diploma.
Okay.
So that particular credential requires a high school diploma. Many companies, so more and more insurance companies are requiring the RBT as a title to have to be able to work through insurance companies. For any of my staff, I can speak to Limitless that aren't yet RBTs. We're putting all of our staff through the credential right now. We personally only hire staff that have years of experience implementing ABA, either in a public school or working for another agency, or students who are in a program to become a BCBA. They need to get 2,000 practical hours before they can sit for their exam. So a lot of our staff are also in a program to become a BCBA, and they're working as therapists now.
Okay.
That being said, that might not be, in my experience, that's not the criteria that all agencies hold to. I have seen companies hire with very, very, very little experience. And if you're going to hire with very little experience, that's fine, as long as you're providing enough on the spot training before. So maybe asking agencies, what training does your staff receive? If parents ask us, I will say that we just don't hire anyone who doesn't have an ABA background, because I don't have the time or resources to provide that intense level of training first. And happy to share that with parents and help them understand that, at least for Limitless, we're not putting someone in your home or at our center that this is their first experience with autism or ABA. So it's a great question to ask the agencies.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I think Antoinette had her hand up also.
Yes, I wanted to ask if there's a special training to become an ABA instructor or something, but I think she's answered that question already.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So that registered behavior technician would definitely be where to start. And there's lots of places that you can go online to find that 40-hour training, to learn about it, and then find an agency that will help you with the assessments and all of that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else had a question? Okay. All right. So I was going to ask my question. Let me try to pull my, and you're getting some kudos. Oh, okay. I have Michael Langmer, who's the Assistant Director of Education from Ghana. And he's also our special ed coordinator for the Tama metropolitan area. So Mr. Michael, welcome. Thank you so much for making time. It's Sunday evening in Ghana, and it's almost 8 o'clock at night, and he's that committed to that. So kudos to you. This is part of, he's been a very dear friend of of Haven International. So we want to thank you so much for being a part of our program tonight. So I'll open it up for his
We met, right?
Yeah, you met. You met. So there you
Hi,
are.
Michael.
We can't hear you. Can you hear?
You're so muted, Michael.
Hello.
Yeah,
Hi.
better.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
Yeah, this is a very wonderful program. I think it's an enlightenment for most of us, because we are learning a lot from this program. In our part of the world, in Africa, we have a lot of challenges concerning education, and more so with special education. I've been listening to a lot of the programs from yesterday, and it's been so inciting. I've learned a lot. Today, Rebecca has said a lot of things. I'm so grateful. What I want to ask is, our problem so much is with parents. Our parents sometimes are not cooperative, majority. In our side of the world, when a child is identified, with special needs, we go a lot of shopping. Parents go shopping from churches, prayer camps, and so many places.
Mhm.
By the time they get to the specialist, the child is gone far.
Mhm.
Those who also come early enough, cooperation with the parents. There are special schools here where children even are brought for admission. You don't see the parents again. They become the school's property. The parents don't come, so that we can work together, we can collaborate, so we can give the children a very good foundation and a very good future. My question is collaboration with parents.
Mhm.
I want something small on that, some skills on how to at least collaborate with parents, how to convince them, how to let them know there is hope. There is hope for these children.
Yeah.
Then this is my question. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I think the most effective way to start that collaboration with parents is to empower them by showing them a skill that the child learned at school or the child learned in therapy. Show the parent how to do it, show the parent how to encourage that skill, and then have the parent see in the moment that they are capable of encouraging these skills in their child as well. We often don't have parents teach skills that we as professionals haven't taught their child yet. So by having skills and showing them, look what we've done, look at the success your child has had in this environment. They've learned this skill, this skill, this skill. Now I'm going to show a parent how to implement some of those things so they can feel that same excitement that, oh my gosh, they're doing it for me too. So starting really small, even if it's, some of our parents, we get their buy-in when we are able to have their child walk out to the car at the end of the day and say, hi, mom. And the first time a child says a hi, mom, it's now, oh my gosh, what can we do? We're going to have them say hi to every relative, everybody they pass in the grocery store. So really giving parents that, having them feel empowered that they can provide and support, and having them really be a part of the decisions on what we teach their children. So asking them, what's important to you? Help the child learn it, and then you can help the parents see that it really is going to work.
Thank you very much. I'm saying this because I'm a sign languageist. I do sign language. There is one boy I helped in Ghana. He's right now in the University Polytechnic. He's doing computer science.
Yeah, that's great.
I wanted to help the parents to sign, at least communicate with the child at home. But it looks like there's no interest.
Yeah.
The time is not there. When you need them, they are not available. Even when you get to the house, I go to his house and I tell the parent, at least let's learn some basic sign language. Anytime he wants to communicate with the child, he may call me. Sometimes we do video call and I have to sign for the child. So these are some of the challenges, but I have taken your advice and involve them by letting them know. Hello?
Can that child read?
Yes, he's a hearing impaired child.
So it seems like parents, for whatever reason, are not open to learning sign language. Could they potentially write to him?
Yes, they do.
Oh, okay.
They do. But you see, in sign language, we don't sign exact English.
Right.
We don't sign exact English. For that reason, this child may write something the parents may not understand because he doesn't sign grammar. No, they have short forms of writing. But in communication, when you communicate with them with the sign language, they understand perfectly. But I think with this question you asked, when he was growing, after he finished senior secondary school, and he went to the Polytechnic, then I think the writing became important and necessary. Now he can write for the parents and they understand. But from the beginning, it was very difficult. Very difficult. I have to sign for him on video sometimes for the parents, because the parents will call me, they use speech, but I have to sign for him.
Right.
So I understand the collaboration you have mentioned, letting them know what we are doing, so that at least they can also reinforce at home.
Right.
Thank you very much.
But this sounds like they were very lucky to have you.
Yes.
But and we've had, sometimes it's hard. We had one of our clients that was completely toilet trained at my office for 2 years before the parent was willing to do it at home. There's sometimes barriers that are, as professionals, are just out of our control, you know, so we do the best that we can. And now the family is ready. They started 2 weeks ago. And the best text message I've ever gotten was that the little guy was going to be late to therapy because on the way out, he used his communication device to ask for the bathroom and sat on the potty and had a bowel movement and was now running late because of all of that. But 3 weeks ago, he would have just been in his diaper and it would have been no big deal. He would have come to us and we would have changed him. So it's amazing. So while as professionals, we were a little bit frustrated, you know, why aren't we doing it yet? Let's do it. He's doing awesome. When the parents were ready to do it, amazing. They're doing beautifully.
Yes.
So sometimes we just have to wait, you know.
Yeah, you mentioned something, and then I find it a bit challenging in Africa, especially when the training of the children in the schools or in the resource centers. Yes, we may have the sophisticated logistics materials at the centers. For instance, when you are teaching a child how to cook, I want to give that example. At the resource center or in a school where it is well established with your maybe your oven, your stove, your so many things in that order. But this child may go home and probably they have the Swiss oven. They have this three-legged oven where he has to put firewood in or get some coal pots, put a charcoal in. Then you see a big difference.
Yep.
Because the child in the school may use a microwave or something, but when he gets home, it is not there. So I was very happy when you mentioned that we use local materials to teach the children. I think I heard you mention something like that, to help the children when we are training them, so that when they go back to where they are, because they are using the local ones, I think they can continue from there. So I like that analysis. I like that example you gave. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's so important for these skills to be functional in.
Because hello, I'm speaking because I'm in Africa, so I'm speaking from where I am and the way the situation is over here. Because sometimes when I go to my villages and I see special needs children, what we have even in Accra may be different from what they have in the village. In our classrooms, there are places where I have pictures, photos, but in the village they don't have those things. I may put up something, probably a kettle to heat water, but when it gets there, it doesn't have the kettle to heat that water. So I have to go down, local, let me say so. I have to go down to the level of that child so that the child will understand. Yeah, that's what I want to explain.
Absolutely.
I go out a lot. And I meet a lot of children. I would like to go to the rural areas where I meet special needs children. I want to help them, educate them. Yeah, so I like that analogy. We should use our local materials to help these children.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are 2 questions in the chat. One was, how do you help with behaviors that are harmful or destructive? I think that's a great question. And we do see that a lot with some of our students. I think we first have to go back to the why, the function. Why do we think the child is engaging in that behavior? And there's much more formal ways as behavior analysts for us to look at the behavior, collect data, and really determine that why. But why are they engaging in that behavior, and what can we help teach that would serve the same function, serve the same purpose, but not be destructive or dangerous? I've had students that just like to throw things. And and trucks, cars, toys. So we set the environment up. So he had specific things that he could throw that were safe. Balloons, light balls. So we can still get the throwing because there's probably something that feels good about that. So we want him to still be able to throw, but find a way to help make it safe. If you see some self-injurious behaviors, we may need to look at medical things. We always have to rule out medical. I know Dr. G talks about all of the medical piece and the supplements and gut issues. If we see a student engaging in a brand new behavior that we've never seen before, we will always ask parents to first go to the doctor, because some of our students, a lot of our students, cannot express that their ear hurts, that their stomach hurts, that something doesn't feel right. So we rule out medical and then do what we can to help replace those behaviors, change it so that it's not as destructive or harmful, but could potentially serve the same purpose. I hope that answered the question. If not, you can pop into the chat again. Another question was, how do we ensure that skills generalize across people and settings? I love this question. And the best answer I have is, if you can, depending on your environment, depending on where you're learning, having that child learn from more than one person. Have that child learn that skill in a variety of settings. So it's what we call programming for generalization. So we don't teach in a very specific environment and then just hope that they do it where they should. We teach in a variety of environments, teach with a variety of different people, which assists with that generalization. And then once you've completed the teaching process, going to another person that's never worked with that child and place the same demand, asked that question to see if that child is able to generalize to a person who they've never worked with. And if not, we need to go back and make sure that we are programming for generalization better. So if we're teaching a child to identify the letter A, we're not just going to use Times New Roman font, capital A in black ink. We're going to teach them to identify the letter A if I've handwritten it, if it's in multiple colors, in different fonts, different sizes, so that they learn that all of those things that look a little different are still an A. So really teaching in a way that promotes generalization.
That was excellent. That was really good. I think we have our nickname here says success. That's Ronke. You want to ask your question? Your hand is raised.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Rebecca, for the presentation. That was really great.
Absolutely.
So I just want to ask a question on behalf of, I know there'll be new parents that'll be watching, or they are currently watching, who have Medicaid.
Okay.
And I remember that you shared that now ABA is now Medicaid approved. Because I don't know if all the centers, if all the centers accept Medicaid. So if you think there are other things they can, other ways that they can check for if it's approved, or
Sure.
the steps that how they can go about using Medicaid.
Yep.
If you can please share. Thank you.
Absolutely. So currently, my agency is not in network with Medicaid. So we encounter several families that reach out to us that have Medicaid that unfortunately we can't service. So the advice that we give to them is, again, the insurance company should, if you call Medicaid, like the number on the back of the card, they should be able to give you a list of the providers that are in network with Medicaid. Another way to access the services is through Perform Care and through your county CMO. Jen, you probably know a little bit more about this, but through Medicaid, So anybody, even people who don't have Medicaid, can utilize in the United States a program called Perform Care. So that program, you can call if you or your child are in crisis, if there is something that you need immediate help. I'm not sure if they are yet, because over COVID, they weren't making house calls, but I think they've started again. So they'll come out, they'll assess, they'll see what the issues are, what services you need, and then help connect you to other services that you might be eligible for through the state. So I would say that Perform Care and a CMO, it's great. Even if you have private insurance, I highly recommend that everyone contacts and becomes involved in the CMO process. So you have a care manager, because I see Jen smiling, because once your child gets to 18 and then 21, that person really should help you navigate the whole system. So having that relationship sooner, and they'll be able to put you in touch with agencies that do provide Medicaid. CMOs often have their own contracts with some companies that they could help connect you with. So I would either contact Perform Care or CMO if your insurance company is not able to help.
Yeah, just to add to that, Perform Care is very tricky. So what I'll say to parents right now is, if you're listening, do call them. You need to be enrolled with them though. So there's an application process. That paperwork that you talked about, even when you're trying to get an ABA company to service your child, that diagnostic paperwork is probably going to be required. So those in the state of New Jersey is under the Department of Children and Family Services. They've contracted out to this agency called Perform Care, and they will do the triaging and then accept you. And once you're accepted, then when you do have these crises and all these questions, then you are eligible for services. But in the meanwhile, it's a great question. Do call your Medicaid case manager, and they should be able to help you kind of navigate through that process and from that perspective. So I think it's a great comment to make. We've been with Perform Care since Nicholas was, or Department of Children and Family Services, since he was 2. And I tell you, when I needed it the most, they were there. It's called crisis. When we were dealing with elopement, we were dealing with all kinds of challenges. And so you want to make, it's almost like a form of insurance. You want to have resources wrapped around you, so when you need it, you have a place to go. And I know there are families on this platform who have known it. Now, of course, outside of the US, it's a different story. And we have quite a number of families that join us from outside of the country. We have different challenges there, which is why Haven, the goal here is to be a community to support you through the process, so that it's not just about providing education, but also providing you with education, not just on academics, but also understanding how to navigate within the system locally where we are. So, and those are all things that we want to continue to put in place. I have my hand up again, and then I know I'll ask my question. Went way over our time, but this is because it's so good information. Maleni, go ahead.
Hey, sorry. So my daughter is 13, and she's done so much ABA. Back in the day, the way that I was able to do things, because I had Medicaid, I didn't have access to any of that stuff. So I did a course. So when BCBAs, before they get their certification, there's some review courses. So I took a review course for BCBA. So that's how I got to do all that stuff. So, I've always implemented it in my house, and the school also did that. But now it's like she smells it. Like she knows she's being manipulated or tricked into doing what, it's lower in her priority. So like, my thing is like, how to navigate that, I know that's not even a situation that happens that much, but I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And bless your heart that you have a 13-year-old daughter. Things get really fun at that age. And something that we're doing as an agency, which you can look at other agencies and see who has things like this, is we have a lot of social skills groups that are like secret ABA. So we have one group that is our boys group. It's like a nighttime gaming group. And they come together and they are playing video games and other games and things like that. And I mean, some of them might know because they know me, they know our center, but they're not sitting at a table. They're not doing discrete trial. It is complete natural environment teaching. We have a girls group on Fridays for preteen and teenage girls where we talk and practice all sorts of different skills that you need as a girl. Again, we're collecting data. We have targeted goals. So it is ABA based. But it doesn't look like ABA. The girls come running in at the beginning. It's like chat time. They get to, everything comes off their chest. What's bad about this week? And then we had one little girl, she was like, I got my period last week. And then we all were like talking about it because that's what they're all, going through. So really ways to make it so much more natural. And what are the reasons that you are still looking at ABA for her? And how can it be done in a much more natural way? Because yes, if she's been an ABA since she was younger, she can probably, smell an ABA therapist. Like, oh, you got Skittles in that bag? Oh, a timer. Yep, got it. So, really just finding places that are offering much more natural environment teaching.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep.
Excellent. Wow, Rebecca, this has been, I know you've done these talks many a time, but this was
like my favorite one so far, I think.
I know, because we have great question, and it's just going to be important that we're probably going to have to do a part 2. Let me just add my, it's going to be a part 2 that I feel like we're going to have to do, because what I wanted to kind of get is a picture of what a session looks like. Right. So for people who are new, you're talking about ABA, you use the terminology, you went in through that, but like getting a sense of what does that look like for the average person, I think would be very helpful, because what I'm hearing you say is that you identify specific functional skills that people want to learn. Even cooking was a prime example. As a parent, I want my child to learn. And I love what Michael said about using natural. Those are functional things that a school can also teach and should be teaching. Not just academics. So ultimately, it's always about how to make that person thrive in life, right? Learning skills that are useful and meaningful. But I know that most of us in the beginning, when we get these diagnoses, we're concerned about, especially the speech component. He's not talking or she's not talking, and the focus is just on that. So there are teachers on the platform here. Talk to us about how your application of ABA strategies in a classroom setting versus in a center-based setting, because you're in a center-based setting, but you also came out of the school system. Do regular teachers need to be ABA trained? And then my other question for you was, what are the requirements to be a BCBA?
Sure. Okay. So the first question, I'm probably a little bit biased because I spend my life doing it, but ABA is amazing for everyone. People don't realize that all of our human behavior, even typical behavior that we engage in every day, happens because of the principles of ABA. Something we did got reinforced, so we keep doing it. Something we did that got quote unquote punished, we don't do anymore. So examples for regular life, if you're speeding down the road and a police officer comes and pulls you over and gives you a ticket, you're less likely, unless you're me, but you should be less likely to speed in the future. So that behavior of speeding got punished because you received a speeding ticket. Reinforcement, all the behaviors that we do. I answer my phone when it rings because on the other end is probably someone I want to talk to. So that behavior of answering my phone gets reinforced because when I answer it, it's, my brother who's FaceTiming with my new baby nephew, or, a friend calling to see how my day was. So all human behavior happens because of these principles. So it's so important for even general education teachers to have some understanding of how human behavior works and how ABA can help shape and change behavior. In a classroom setting, you can implement things like positive behavior supports for your whole classroom, where students, if they engage in certain behaviors, they can maybe earn stars or tokens to earn a classroom party, or different things like that. So I think understanding how behavior works and how we can increase behaviors we want to see and decrease behaviors we don't want to see is so beneficial for classroom teachers. You know, a lot with the attention piece, you know, teachers will say like, I don't know why so-and-so keeps doing this. I don't pay any attention to him when he does. But when I go in and observe, every time he yells out, she acknowledges him, says something to him, tells him to raise his hand, and then he raises his hand eventually and, you know, gets called on. But all of that before, when he called out, all of that was giving him attention. So really being able to look at our own behavior and how our own behaviors as teachers are impacting the behaviors of our students, because it all kind of plays on each other. So I would think that even, you know, introductory ABA would be very helpful for classroom teachers.
Okay, and then the other question was, how much training does a BCBA require? And I know there's some districts where there's one for the whole entire school.
Yep.
So talk to us about that a little bit, because you talked about the importance of having that supervision. So how does a district that only have one supervise all these teachers?
Not well. It's usually so, well, so to become a BCBA, you need to have a master's degree in a related field. So I have a master's degree in special education. And then you can take the coursework, which is, I think it's up to 7 or 8 classes for the BCBA. And then now they're up to 2,000 hours of supervised field work. So you do need to have like a pretty decent experience in the field before becoming a BCBA. As for BCBAs in districts, I will be completely honest, it's one of the hardest jobs a BCBA could have. In New Jersey, especially, we have a lot of children with autism in our public schools. A lot of public schools are creating really nice ABA programs. And the recommended dosage of supervision is 1 hour of supervision, 1 to 2 hours of supervision for every 10 hours of therapy. That's just not possible to maintain in a public school, because if there's 2 elementary classes, 2 middle school classes, and 2 high school classes of children with autism and only 1 BCBA, it's more likely that that BCBA is going to be spending time writing behavior plans, doing trainings with teachers. And then when I was a school BCBA for a short time, putting out fires, you know, getting a phone call, there was a crisis in this classroom, can you come down and help? So some on the spot training with teachers to be able to manage these behaviors on their own. It is a very difficult position that doesn't allow, in my opinion, in some districts, a BCBA to truly provide the support for the individual students that as BCBAs we really want to be able to.
Wow, excellent. And then my last question, as we have taken so much more of your time,
Okay.
is what can you tell the parents who want to try out some of these strategies? Where should the parents go to get information?
To try out ABA strategies?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you have ABA services, your BCBA would be the first person to try out. There's a lot of great resources. The video that I showed was by a woman who goes by Behavior Babe. So she provides a lot of great resources for parents. Mary Barbera is another woman who was a former nurse, then had a child with autism, and she became a BCBA. So she's provided a lot of parent training curriculum and videos. I often recommend that some of our parents look at that RBT course. They can be pretty affordable, and it just gives you a really nice breakdown of ABA and how to implement. Of course, the best way is to have ABA professionals working with you, but there's lots of resources that you can find online. And a lot of people really do try to provide as much for free online so parents can.
Wow, what an amazing time today. I want to say thank you so much, Rebecca, for giving up your Sunday afternoon. And for those who are watching us later, truly, very brilliant woman who is committed and looking for ways for our kids to grow and expand. And I'm really happy to hear that you go up to 21, because I know that when we first started, it was just the little kiddos, but now they're growing along with you. You can say
that. Yes, they are. They get older, as do we. And
so yeah, you're getting a lot of kudos from everybody for great presentation. Like I said, there will be more of that to come, because you just, tickled some people's minds. And hopefully for new parents who are listening or watching, because we want to make this video available as part of our new to autism diagnosis parent series, so that at least the elementary components of what you need to learn, you'll learn it here and then not seem so overwhelmed. Because remember, it just take it one day at a time, one step at a time. When you feel like you're overwhelmed, just pause, breathe, and then, call us. My goal is here as an organization to support you. We're walking the journey day in and day out. And if we don't know, we'll find somebody that does. But if you're in New Jersey, call Perform Care. I'll say that again. If you're in New Jersey, call Perform Care. If you're a Haven parent, please do talk to us. We have our platform. You have questions, we want you to know we're there for you. And remember, ABA is not just only for autism. It's an instructional methodology, as she talked about, to apply for every area of life, because there are some individuals in our program who are Down syndrome. So we just wanted those parents to know that the strategies are still universal in its application. So on that note, I want to say thank you, everyone, for a great being here with us today. I want to remind our New Jersey folks that we have our Bowling for Autism event that's going to come up very soon. It's going to be Sunday, April 24th. Is going to be in Woodbridge Bowling Center. So if you go to mygoalinc.org, we're looking for bowlers. We're going to have a competition. And more importantly, we want to raise resources to help families. And ultimately, that's why My Goal exists. And then to our Haven family, you know that there's more work going on. Tomorrow, there's another program for y'all. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., we have another event. And then on Tuesday, so there's more to come. And Jen, I will open it up to you if you're on now to just kind of give a brief highlight to them if you want to remind them of some of the activities that are coming, if you're able to unmute. I know I put you on the spot with that. Give me a break.
Sure. Thank you so much, Jen. Like you already said, tomorrow we have a session with one of our parents, and then more instruction, more training, or more information on education strategies also. And then for Tuesday, we have a vocational piece on our vocational program, DAPT, Next Hope. And then we have lots of fun activities coming in later. So keep an eye on our platform and our website and social media handles. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. So Rebecca, you'll like to know this, but we are adopting the Next Hope program to Haven. So yeah, so Rebecca was instrumental in us establishing the Next Hope initiative through Nick's idea of vocational programming. So we're making an announcement here that is, the vocational program at Haven is going to be themed that name. So it'll be Nick's Hope Social Enterprise Institute. So for Deborah, if you're listening, you now have a name for your program. So it's part of our desire to see, doesn't matter what abilities you have, you do have something in you, and we'll help to bring it out and be able to create functional tools that people will use within the settings that they are in. And then hopefully that, folks will go forward. We've had at Haven, 2 individuals have graduated from our program who came out of our vocational training a few years ago, and we're looking forward to graduating more students. So that just tells us that our vision is to continue to impact the world globally. So yeah, so Rebecca, I thought you would like that. It was one of those brain ideas in the middle of my day. I'm like, wait a minute, can we just pull it all together? So see what you did with Nick is now going all the way back to Ghana and beyond. So Jen will be showing some of the work that's being done. And I also want to plug that part of what's being done now in Haven is that we're starting a STEAM program: science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So Robert will be in Ghana in a little bit to share and do some work with the kids there. So there's more to come. And as our vision is to continue to see our individuals blossom. And I believe that that's what we're able to do because of that. So I am very super excited about all the great things that are coming. So I'm just going to quickly share the bulletin. So I just want to show everybody, remember, go here and register. So you go to mygolink.org, it will bring you to our bowling page and you can register and sponsor and donate. So I want to thank everybody for being a part of our work. We can't do it without you. And for all our donors and sponsors, we are so grateful. And so on that note, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Have a great night and look out for havenint.org on our Facebook page and Instagram, and on also my GoLink on Facebook and Instagram, and you would learn more about the things that we're doing. So once again, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you everyone for coming out. Have a great night, everyone.